Alright, welcome to another video on what is fast becoming the Incognito channel. The Incognito ASMR channel, maybe that would be a good name for it. But anyway, in this video I'm going to answer the question that was most frequently posed upon release of the initial videos, the installation videos. I'm not talking about why are the wires different colors to the ones in the video. I'm talking about what is Incognito and why do I want it and what can I do with it. So what does Incognito actually do? Well, you get dual modes of operation, that's 800 mode and XLXE mode. You get 1 megabyte of extended memory, which in 800 mode works as Axelon memory, and in XLXE mode ordinary port B type of extended memory. You get 4 user-definable operating system ROMs for each mode. You get a built-in user-definable basic, 1 slot per mode. You get built-in compact flash-based PBI hard disk, which you can also use to boot disk images, etc. You get a built-in XEX loader for managing partitions and disk images. You get built-in Sparta-DOS X, and you get a built-in real-time clock. Now I do have links under the videos that direct you to Candle's website and Lasarex's website, and there's bits of information there that you can read. Hopefully will answer the question, but in this we're going to explore things a little bit more closely, because none of those articles are going to actually show you how to use the thing, and maybe expose some of those capabilities that the hardware actually possesses that you didn't know about. The reason I've got this machine still dismantled on the table here was just a minor update that since installing the board I actually worked a little bit more on this light conductor just to get it to work nicely. To all those who think this is an easy step to get this working, it's more difficult than it looks actually, because just to get the thing to move smoothly in the little tunnel is a lot harder than you might think. Especially if you've never done it before, and I've done the thing about 4 times now, and unless you've got a CNC machine you're going to be filing off different amounts of plastic every single time you do it. But anyway, it works now. The other slight modifications I made, I replaced the R189 resistor, which is 75 ohm, on the Luma output of the video circuit with a 180 ohm resistor, and I think that provides a really nice compromise in video quality. It looks very much like what you would expect from a stock 800XL now, in my personal opinion, or maybe one that's had the video tweaked a little bit. It's not spectacularly good,
fuck you,
but it's I think it's better than it was out of the box, because it's a bit overdriven. Whether Atari did this in an attempt to fatten up the characters a bit, I don't know. The machine's generally praised for its good quality video, but I think it's a little bit better. I'll show you in a minute. And the other thing I did is I replaced the current limiting resistor on the LED, the power LED, just to dim it off a little bit so that the hard disk light is a bit more noticeable when it's in operation. I forget the value I put in there. Actually, I can probably look it up. Yeah, it's a 5.6K resistor, this one, right here. So that's basically it. What I'll do is I'll switch the thing on and give you a look at the video quality as it is at the moment. So this is booting directly into Sparta-DOS X. I've got a photograph that I took of the screen, which I'll dump into the video and you can have a look. So this machine has the original firmware on it. Wow, that brings back memories, doesn't it though? I mean, the logo's kind of nice. All credit to the guy who designed that. Now, odd thing I noticed here, let's just power the machine on from cold using the original firmware. Now, I've never noticed this before until this board. So I press reset, you would expect it just to soft reset but it's actually rebooting the operating system. It's kind of odd. This time let's go directly into the BIOS. Well, not directly into the BIOS. Let's go into the BIOS via reset. So Atari key and reset. And now press Q to boot Sparta-DOS X. So it boots again. There we go. Now press reset and it's fine. So it seems like the first system reset reboots the operating system regardless. It must clear the magic bytes. I'd never noticed that before, and I'll be interested to see what happens actually after we do the firmware update, which I suppose we could actually go ahead and do right now because why not? And let's say for the sake of argument that you want to update it to the to my firmware. So we might as well go through and show you what to do. So you need to be in Sparta-DOS X, you need to have a megabyte of RAM enabled, and we need to mount the ATR with the firmware on it using maybe SIO to PC. You can do it with you can put it on a compact flash card as well. There's numerous different ways you can go about it, but the way I usually do it is I use some sort of serial SIO attached device like SIO to PC, and we've got the ATR mounted on drive 1. So there we go. We've got UFlash and we've got Incog ROM, which is 512 kilobytes ROM. So we're going to nuke the entire ROM. We're going to reflash the whole thing, get rid of things like the high-speed OS, which we don't really need anymore. We've got SIO at 57 kilobits per second here in respect. So we're going to flash the entire ROM. So we need to highlight the chip at the top, which is as it is. You can see it's identified the device automatically. If it doesn't identify the device automatically, stop what you're doing and post on the forum or send me an email or something. I'll try and help you through it. But we can see all is well here. We can see we've got the original selection of high-speed OS, which is unfortunately in this default OS slot, which is a bit confusing for some people, but never mind, we couldn't know at the time. So we're going to press enter here. It says flash hole ROM slot. Slot descriptions will be lost! Exclamation mark. Yes, that's fine. And we're going to hit enter. We're going to navigate down to Incognito ROM. We just press the down cursor key to highlight the first entry in the list. Then we press enter. And we get a confirmation message. Then we press enter again. And it reads the whole ROM into extended memory. And it will eventually flash. It doesn't take too long, even at this speed. So you can see it's just finished reading the whole file into extended memory. Now it's going to double check that you want to flash the entire ROM. We do, so we can just press enter here and it's going to erase the whole thing. This is the most critical phase of the operation. If the hardware, providing the hardware works as it's supposed to and hasn't got any installation problems or stability issues, this is a really very, very reliable process. I do have one of these here. A Mini Pro programmer, TL866CS. I'm sorry, I haven't got my glasses on. These are cheap, they're worth having. Worst case scenario, you pop the flash chip out the board and rescue it that way. But I work, as you can imagine, I wrote this firmware. The number of times I have to flash these machines using exactly this method, because I don't want to be taking flash ROMs out of the board all the time. Doesn't do them any good anyway. Right, I'll just ring you back because I'm in the middle of making a video at the minute. I'll bring you back later on. Bye. I rarely, if ever, have to use this thing, honestly. Rarely, if ever, on 5 or 6 different machines. The only time I use this thing is to fix somebody else's machine where they've managed to brick it. But anyway, so it's updated successfully. So now, what I would recommend you do now is a power cycle. This is the scary bit because people think it's not going to come back on. Of course it will. There it is. I might actually move it to my machine because it's fully reassembled. It's got the button on it and everything. I still need to button this one down and screw it together because my machine's got Jurgen's super color CPU card in it, which gives us a nice bright display. Although, as I've said, the video quality on here is very, very nice indeed. Alright, so here we are with my machine, which is has the advantage of already being put back together. So let's just push this 8 key back down. It's trying to escape. Let's switch it on and have a little look around the firmware. Obviously this one's already been updated to version 3.03. We ran through some of the key features before, but I want to show you actually this in clean mode, which is compatibility mode. I want to show you how the hard disk actually works, and then we'll move on to XLXE mode and how the hard disk works in what we would call the PBI mode. So I've switched modes like this. I'm going to press B, which saves the settings and reboots. Okay, so now we have the Colleen driver, which has detected that we're running in 800 mode, and it's read the partitions on the disk, and we can actually get a directory of the disk. So this is how you would use a hard disk in 800 mode. Of course, we've got plenty of RAM. We've got a 1 megabyte Axlon memory upgrade there, and F-disk works just as it would in XLXE mode. So everything works rather well. The only problem in clean mode is that since the hard disk is only accessible via SpartaDOS X, you can't actually boot a DOS, disk images, etc. hosted on the hard disk. So that just gives you a quick overview of what you can do there. But in SpartaDOS X, in the confines of SpartaDOS X, you can do most other things. If we now switch to XLXE mode, so essentially you have two computers in one here. You've got an XLXE and your original 800 with all the nice memory upgrades and extra goodies. So if we go over here, we've got the PBI BIOS and hard disk menu. Usually the defaults are fine. In this case I've got, because of the way this particular card's set up, it's got the hard disk boot partition on drive 3. So this is for the purpose of SpartaDOS X. When you're running SpartaDOS X, the first thing it does is look for a config system file on the boot partition, which is why I've got that set to drive 3. I've got the high-speed SIO driver enabled here, so that all looks good. So we press B to save and boot. Now if we press F-disk again, we can see that it picks up the hard disk just as it did before, but this is using a driver which is completely agnostic to the choice of DOS. Now if we go back into the BIOS, another thing worth mentioning, let's say you had multiple different configurations that you wanted to switch between regularly. You get 4 different configuration profiles on this firmware. Previously it was 3, and in the original firmware you just get the 1. And you can access these if you want to just by pressing the appropriate number. These other profiles here, you probably can't see very well in the video because of the contrast level, but these other profiles haven't been set up yet. So you could, let's just say for example, let's go to profile 2. Profile 2 could be a Colleen profile. You could set things up the way you wanted to there. Let's have 48K OSA, no internal basic, no Axlon emulation. Save that. Now if we go to profile 3 here, that could be another Colleen profile, but that could be a Colleen profile with let's say 52K OSB, fast chip, internal basic, Axlon emulation, SpartaDOS. Save that. That's profile 3 now. So you can switch between those 3 different machines, or 4 if you set the 4th one up as well, with the press of a button. So anyway, let's have a look at the loader, something we haven't particularly covered yet. You can get into the loader from pretty much anywhere by pressing the L key. So here we are. This is the compact flash card I use for testing the system. I've got a big partition here, FAT32 partition, full of games, full of XEX files and disk images. One I frequently use to test the system is Pac-Man Terrace, a demo. It's on a 2-disc set. Now of course we've got the disk swap button, the ATR swap button down here at the bottom. You probably can't see it. I'm at the camera point now. There we go. So this little fellow here, which is the second part of the installation process, which is deemed optional from some points of view. Nevertheless, it's very useful. I'll show you why. So this, these are the two ATR files, side 1 and side 2. So obviously at some point we're going to want to flip the disk, if you like. And this is all hosted on the compact flash card here. Now we can mount these two things by pressing the tab key, select the drive number that you want to mount the image on, and then press return. And it suggests the next logical drive number for you. I can control unmount everything there. An easier way to do it is to make a map file if you've got more than one image. And if we just hit the map file, it will mount those two images on the, as described in this script, and reboot. I can do it without rebooting. If you hold the control key down, it will just mount the two images and suppress the reboot. So now if I press Ctrl and R to reboot, it starts to boot the software. Press enter there. So there is loading part 1, complete with simulated SIO noise. Now it's asking for side 2. This is where the button comes in rather useful. We just press this and then press enter, and in pressing that button, the next time the system wants to access the disk, it realizes the button's being pressed and it flips the images. So the image on D2 moves to D1, D2 moves around to the back, in this case D2. Other things you can do with the loader, you can search for things. Let's say we want to run YUMP. Just type a couple of letters of the file name. We've got Sweet Emotion demo, crops up quite frequently on this disk. I used it a lot for testing for some reason. It's very good. So this will find all occurrences of the demo. Well, not quite as many occurrences as I expected actually. Now we can open the folder that contains this search result by pressing Ctrl and F. That one happened to be in the root, so it wasn't a great example. So this particular found item happened to be in the ATR and demos folder. So let's say you could have found that file, it comes up in the search results, but where is it? There's other stuff in that folder I know for a fact that I'm looking for. Well, if you press Ctrl and F with the found item in the search results highlighted, it'll take you right to the folder, open the folder with the item highlighted in said folder. Now we get also in the logical drives menu, it gives you a list of what's what and what's mounted where, what it is. We've got hard disk partitions on drive numbers 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. These numbers in the second column are actually the ID numbers of those particular entities on disk. The numbers next to disk images are the host partition number. You can read up on this as much as you want to do. You don't really necessarily need to understand it. It's most of the time people tend to use a single fat partition for hosting ATRs. And you can do various other things here, and there's obviously the settings you can use. I've got lots of fat partitions on this disk. You can also open the APT, which is the Atari partition table container. This is where the Atari accessible partitions exist, complete with their drive numbers, etc. And these external partitions here, you can see EXT there, they refer, they are external references to the fat partitions on the disk. So that's a 769 megabyte fat partition. Now if we look at the list of fat partitions here, we can see that this external partition in the APT, it hasn't got a drive number at the moment, but I can go ahead and mount it if I wanted to, just by there. I can put it on drive 1 if I want. So that partition is now mounted on drive 1. It's fat formatted, and it's an external link from here out to here, which is, as far as the MBR is concerned, as far as DOS and Windows are concerned, this is called test 2, and it's a FAT32 partition, so it doesn't actually make a great deal of sense, because the only driver, the only FAT driver at the moment is a FAT16 driver, but nevertheless you get the idea. So why don't we go ahead and set the card up from scratch. I will actually publish some ready-made images I was asked to do, and I've just remembered about that. But let's turn the machine off, open the lid, take this card out and put this spare card in, which will hopefully work okay. And I'm just going to initialize it from scratch just to give you an idea of what's involved. So if we turn on again. Alright, so if we go into F disk now, it's a little awkward to type from next to the camera, but there we are. Now there's probably stuff on here already actually. Yeah, just some throwaway partition. I'm going to come back out of this, I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to go into initialize. MBR will be destroyed. So this is going to obliterate everything on the disk. So we can see that after overheads, the capacity of the disk is 977 megabytes. The default is to have a protective MBR on the disk, and any FAT, the default format is FAT32. We'll go ahead and change that to FAT16, and it went and populated the size for me helpfully there. I'm just going to roughly half the disk, so half of it's going to be FAT, half of it's going to be APT. That's going to be plenty of space. Metadata sectors, autofill disk, that's fine. Autofill just means that it'll round up these partition sizes to actually fill the available space. You can take that off actually, and if you uncheck autofill disk, make a FAT partition that's smaller, or make both sections smaller than the overall size of the disk, that will give you more space to add more FAT partitions using the PC later on. So we get the chance to review what we are doing, and that all looks reasonably good. So we say yes, yes, and now we get an empty APT. So let's make a couple of partitions. We'll make them 32 megabyte partitions. They're the largest that SpartaDOS can handle at the moment using the default file system. We'll just make 3, and we'll make the first one the boot. Oh, beg your pardon, I have to give it a drive number first. So we'll just go keep it simple. Drive 3, 4, and 5. Now we go back up to drive 3, and we'll make that our boot partition with the B key. Or you can use the menu system if you want. You can access all these all this functionality from the menu as well. I won't go through it all now. It should be fairly obvious if you know how to use Windows. So that looks fine. Now what I can also do, remember I got that FAT16 partition. This is entirely optional. If you want to access a FAT16 partition from within SpartaDOS, read-only, we have a FAT driver which will allow you to do so. Let's say we wanted to do this, we can go into here and we can say we want an external partition. And now there is the partition that we already made. It's got the correct size there. So there's the FAT partition that we already made. We're going to OK that, and it's put an entry in here which actually points to the FAT partition, and we can give that a drive number as well. We can call that drive 6. So drive 6 is going to be our FAT partition, and we'll be able to access it from Windows in the normal manner just by putting the card in the card reader, and we'll also be able to access it from the Atari. So if this all looks okay, we can give these names as well. If you press the N key, you can call that one boot if you want. We'll call that one data. We can even give the external partition a name. Call it FAT. We won't bother with the other one, so that looks fine. So we can go to APT write to disk. Are you sure? Yes, and it's all done. We'll come out of this now, close. We'll just in fact exit. Now we should immediately get access to these partitions, so we can just jump in and format them. So we'll format or rather write a file system to them. So build directory, yes, yes, that's done. We'll do drive D as well. All 512 bytes per sector. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change one of them. I'm going to make one of them double density so that we can show you how to boot a different OS. Let's say this one here. We're going to change the we'll change the sector size to 256. That's no problem at all. Doing that after the event, we'll have to format it again, of course. So we'll write that back, and we'll call that partition. Oh, let's call it minus. Right, and let's write that as well. Make sure everything is written out. So now we'll have to go back and format that drive E again, and it's picked up the fact that it's double density instead of quad density. Build directory. There we go. So now we should be able to get a directory, which we can. Drive 2, which is SIO to PC, so I'll just copy a read-write test onto drive 3. Right, so I've copied one file from the PC on SIO to PC to drive 3. We run RW test on the partition. There we go. So now we're going to take the card out, take it over the PC, put some disk images on the card, and then bring it back and have a play with them. Alright, so I've grabbed a few ATRs and pasted them into the fat partition here. I'll pop the card back in, and we'll have a look in the loader and see what we've got. Okay, so this is the disk structure we previously created. So I went over to the PC, formatted that partition FAT16. There's the APT with the entries that we made. Don't forget we made 3 Atari partitions and this external reference here. And there's all the volumes mounted and shown in the logical drives menu. So if we open the FAT partition, this is the stuff I've copied across, just kind of a random a selection of stuff here. We've got copies of Sparta-DOS, the old disk-based Sparta-DOS. We can boot these just by pressing enter on them. There we go, we've got Sparta-DOS on drive 1, and that's all hosted on the compact flash card. Bootable. Another great thing we can do here, unfortunately I have to power off the machine again. Okay, so we've got an Ultimate card here. This should fit. So we'll pop that into the left cartridge slot. So we've got a copy of Basic XE here. Now if we press A, that should start the cartridge. Yes. Now I think I should be able to go back into the loader. Right. Boot this. And if we type no cartridge. Right, after some fiddling around there, I was able to get Basic XE to work. So Basic XE is hosted on the Ultimate cartridge here. It was a bit of a fiddle about, it's not ideal. There'll be better solutions in the future, but you can see we've got Sparta-DOS 3.2 booting from a disk image on the compact flash card, and we've got the Ultimate cartridge emulating Basic XE from the SD card here, and everything should work. So that's a directory of the disk images. I think we should also have access to that double density partition. And which one did I put that on? D5, I think it was. So this is a hard disk partition, which we do get. There's no files in it, so that's a hard disk partition as well. What we could do is actually install Sparta-DOS onto the hard disk partition, so it would just boot up every single time, but that's getting into the realms of another video that I've got planned for the future. So you can see it, hopefully you can see that it's extremely flexible. You can use any DOS you want. You can use the Ultimate cartridge or the AVG cartridge if you can fit it in the slot, or anything else you want to emulate these ROMs. We've got a OSS cartridge ROMs that work on a side cartridge as well. That won't fit in the slot either. So really a myriad of different ways that you can go about doing things. So hopefully that gives you a brief and rather random flavour of what you can actually do with the machine. It is tremendously powerful, and if it's teamed up with something like the Supercolor CPU card for great video quality, it's a real pleasure to use. Of course, the keyboards on these things are gorgeous. They have a very peculiar sort of Marmite aesthetic, which you either love or hate, I guess. I've certainly started to grow on me, this machine. And it's no longer left out in the cold when it comes to the huge software base that's available for the XL XE series. It's a really fantastic upgrade. I'm so pleased that it's available again, as I'm sure many people are, who've had the chance to buy them and install them. It's definitely one of the great all-time upgrades. It is a fantastic achievement, there's no doubt about that, and the fact that it's given me it's kept me busy for about 4 years on and off, writing new firmware for the thing, which I did out of a real admiration for the hardware. Likewise with Ultimate 1 Megabyte, I love this hardware. I love to see it installed in computers. I think it transforms the usability of the systems. What I wanted to do was squeeze as much functionality out of the hardware as I possibly could. That was my mission when I worked on this stuff. And to see the BIOS screen that I created, the firmware menu that I created appearing on people's machines when they post photos of the installations and stuff, is really wonderful. I never ever thought I would see something like that. Yes, I hope you found that useful. I'm going to bring it to an end now because it's getting a bit late, and I don't think this video is going to get any better if it gets longer. So thank you for watching. Leave a like, a comment, etc. Share the video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. I think we're around about 850 subscribers when I recorded this. It would be kind of nice to get over the 1,000 by the end of the year. I know I'm not going to break any records with this channel. As one particularly charitable observer was keen to point out,
fuck you!
One is not going to become famous by making videos about Atari computers. Thank you, I really appreciate the reminder. But yes, please share it and let me know what you think below. And that's it. I'll see you in the next video on the Incognito channel. And yeah, thank you for watching again. Thank you to everyone, and goodbye for now.